How's it going, guys? I hope you're having an absolutely great day. Doing a little bit of a different setup today, a little bit different atmosphere. I'm in front of the workbench. I don't have a camera guy or anything like that. Just wanted it to be a little bit more laid back today. But main reason being is that I wanted to just kind of take a couple minutes and, well, first of all, we're doing a little budget bow build overview. Not necessarily a review. I've only had a week or two with this bow here. I'm waiting on my other bow to come in, which that's gonna remain a secret until we do a bow build video for that one. Wanted to talk about this bow and more importantly, just the concept of a budget bow. And why I think that they definitely have a place and why that place is getting a little bit more and more quiet in the archery community nowadays. So kicking it off with the bow itself, this is the Blackout Epic X2. So Blackout, if you're unfamiliar with it, I've done a bow build on their brand before, but it's pretty much the in-house brand that Bass Pro and Cabela's has. Now, I say in-house just because you can only buy it from them, but the Blackout brand is actually produced by Bear Archery. It came in a Bear Archery box when I got it. If you look, it's all the same tech. They pretty much just slap a Blackout sticker on it afterwards and then sell it as such. Now, the reason why I went with that brand instead of Bear Archery or instead of a couple other bow manufacturers that make really solid price point bows is because Bass Pro and Cabela's are everywhere. You may be in a store that doesn't carry Mission or doesn't carry Bear Archery or doesn't carry some of the PSE bows that are a little bit more inexpensive. But pretty much anywhere that you go in Cabela's or Bass Pro, anywhere in the country, they're gonna have this brand bow. They have a little bit higher end ones, and then they definitely have some lower end ones. This is just one that I landed on. And as far as the price, I'll get to that towards the end of the video. I wanna kind of keep that anonymous now and just go through some of the specs on paper. So starting off, this bow's coming in at 32 inches axle to axle. The main draw for me on this bow though is gonna be in that cam system. So if you've seen anything about Bear Archery before and looking at it kind of right out of the box, that is pretty much their EKO cams. So they call it the sync cams on the Blackout bows. But that cam system is adjustable from 75% to 90% let off. I got the 70-pound model and I have it cranked down to 75% right now, just because I like a little bit more holding weight. I have this set up right now as kind of just my off-season target shooting. I want to stretch the distance out. I'm not doing any hunting with it or anything like that. I just have it set up right now to improve my accuracy as best I can. So lower let off typically gets me that way. As far as the brace height goes, it's gonna be pretty in the middle of the road. It's about 6.5 inches, I think 6 3/8 is the exact. It's definitely not gonna be the most forgiving bow, but at 6 3/8, it's a fairly good brace height. You're gonna get a good amount of forgiveness out of it, while at the same time maintaining a pretty good speed, especially if you crank it down into those lower let off settings. So now that we've kind of talked about the specs of the bow, I want to veer off just a little bit and talk about why I think a budget bow is important. So for me, like I said, I'm waiting on my main bow and the flagship bow that I'm gonna run for these next couple seasons. So I'm shooting this guy, and the more and more I'm shooting it, the more and more I'm getting acquainted with it. I'm really realizing that there's an unspoken gap in a budget bow setup and a flagship bow setup. For me, this guy is just kind of a backup bow. It's something that I wanted to pick up, so in case anything goes wrong on the new bow that I'm getting in, whether that be in hunting season or just some random occurrence, I have a backup bow and I don't have to wait. Worst case scenario, I can go out and hunt with this guy or go out and do whatever it is that I'm doing with my backup bow and know that it's good to go. Now, that's my application for it. And I definitely think that other people are gonna have different applications for it. To some people, a bow like this may be their main bow. It may be the only thing that they can afford. It may be the only thing they really want to spend money on. And that right there, that concept of not wanting to spend a whole lot of money on a bow is kind of where I feel like the gap is getting wider and wider in the archery community. Because you see so many people, you see so many advertisements for flagship bows, for these super expensive bows, and it's obviously, it's good marketing. It's nothing wrong with doing that, and I'm not blaming any bow companies for trying to push their main products. But then you see the prideful side on the consumer end of those products, where I equate it to if you're going in the gym, right? And if you are not benching 225, there are going to be those people in the gym who have that mindset of, oh man, if you aren't benching 225, if you aren't deadlifting these numbers or squatting these numbers, then I'm better than you and you don't have a place in the gym. It's a crazy mindset to me, because with either one of those things, I mean, whether I'm in the gym or whether I am shooting my bow in the archery realm of things, there's nothing that I want more than other people to get into that. It's something that I'm passionate about, and I think a telltale sign of someone being passionate is them trying to get other people into that same thing. So there is a sense of pride in owning a $1,300 bow, or especially, I mean, there are carbon bows that are $1,800, pushing $2,000, and then you're dumping in, $500 on a sight and $200 on stabilizers, and then you have to get the best rest on the market. So you're getting a $300 rest. So you're very quickly, you can't forget about arrows either. You got to spend $250 on a dozen of arrows just to be, at par with the archery standard. And you're quickly $3,000-$4,000 into a setup, and all that time, none of that equipment makes you a better archer. The thing when you're getting into archery is going to be learning those fundamentals, whether it be learning online, which there's hundreds of great resources online now to learn archery and to kind of self-coach, and then have more of a peer-reviewed thing online with your own form and with your performance. Or whether it's going in and actually having an archery coach at your local club, having somebody critique your form who actually knows what they're talking about. That is where your attention should be going when you first get into archery. So I don't think that it's necessarily taboo to start off in a budget setup. Nothing against it, it's nothing bad, but you see guys who don't even know if they're gonna like archery, don't even know if it's necessarily gonna be for them, who are going out and dropping $2,000 on a setup. And it's just like, brother, man, I'm glad your dentistry degree can afford you that, but that's just not gonna be a good circumstance if you end up not liking it. Like, it's crazy to me. And especially if you're looking at a bow that performs like this. Because I'll be totally honest, when I originally got this bow set up, I wasn't expecting it to really perform well. I was expecting it to have decent numbers, not necessarily be crazy, but I'm thoroughly impressed with this bow. So a little bit of insight. First weekend in March, I'm going out into Iowa and we're shooting a 3D archery tournament, my girlfriend and I. Originally I was planning on having my new bow set up and ready to go shoot and break it in at that tournament. It's looking, because archery manufacturers and shipping and everything is just horribly slow still. Like, I'm gonna need to probably shoot this guy at that tournament. And I have no problem with that at all. Because really at the end of the day, it comes down to the shooter and your fundamentals and not the bow. Now, yes, there's gonna be the exceptions. There's gonna be the greatest archers in the world who can tell when they're out shooting their bows. And I'm sure that I'm gonna get told that in the comments, or I'm sure that people are thinking it if they see this. But most of the time, 10 times out of 10, and I'll be honest, if you're watching this video, you probably aren't gonna be able to outshoot your bow. I know that I cannot. I always give the analogy or the example of, if you put this bow in Levi Morgan's hand, if you put this bow in Jesse Broadwater's hands, they're gonna outshoot 90% of the world still. They are going to be able to absolutely dominate a field, because those fundamentals and those skills transcend whatever bow you're shooting. It seems like every year a bow company comes out with their best bow yet, but every year the best shooters stay pretty consistent. That doesn't really change as much. So that's kind of my 2 cents on the budget setup and the budget mindset, where it's nothing to be ashamed of. And if that's something where you just don't want to spend a ton of money to get into it, and especially if it's just all you can afford, it really comes down to, that should be what you're focusing on. You should be focusing on having a good time in archery and learning fundamentals, and not worrying about pleasing the guys at the range or the guys on social media with having the most expensive, coolest setup on the planet. Now that I've kind of stood in my soapbox for a little bit and ranted about that, back to the bow. So as far as the setup that I got on here, it comes out of the box with a rest, a sight, stabilizers, and a quiver. The rest is just going to be a simple whisker biscuit. It's all Trophy Ridge. The sight, I believe, was a 5-pin just fixed sight position. And then the quivers are gonna be pretty standard. Stabilizer is pretty standard as well. Again, if you start off with that, you can do amazing things with that bow. Pretty sure more deer have probably been killed with a whisker biscuit than any sort of drop away or cable driven, limb driven rest, anything like that. And that being said, I did kind of doll up my setup. I put on a mover sight on there, still more of a budget mover. It's the CBE Tactic 3-pin. So I wanted to get that on there for the hunting season, have it set up on backup. That way, if I need to, I can take it out west, I can hunt in the whitetail woods. I'm kind of good to go on that front. Then on the stabilizer side of things, I threw a front bar and a back bar on there, just running some extra bars that I had laying around. It's nothing super crazy. It's a pretty standard front and back setup. Then you're moving over to the rest. Right now, I have a QAD HDX rest on there. That is probably the higher end side of things as far as rest. It's not gonna be the most expensive rest by any means, but what I mean by it is if I wanted to throw a budget drop away rest on there, I'd probably get a QAD Ultra rest. That's gonna run you 70 bucks, depending on if you get it on sale or not or anything like that. But the performance that you get out of that is gonna be amazing. Just the adjustability is gonna be the thing that you're kind of lacking on that front. And then the quiver, I don't shoot with the quiver on, so I just kind of throw that behind me if I ever get a quiver in a package bow or anything like that. Now, the one thing that I did do that it's more so just a personal style thing is I threw on some strings. I run America's Best bow strings. I've had no problems with them. I've run them on quite a few of my bows. And I guess the point of all of that is that this setup right now, it's sitting right around $1,000 when everything's all put together. But that $1,000 doesn't have to be spent all at once. You don't have to go right out of the gate and get this setup rolling. You can ease into it. You can get that sight, get that rest, and slowly upgrade. And at the end of the day, once it's all said and done and you saved up and spent some money here, spent some money there, you have a really killer setup and you can get a lot of work done with this thing. Now, the big number that I promised to get back to was gonna be the price of this thing. So this thing with all the bells and whistles that comes on it, out of the box with the whole package and everything, it's coming in just shy of $600 at $599. With the performance that you get out of it, the adjustability in that actual cam system, and just the overall feel of the bow, I really, really enjoy it. And I do think that it's worth every penny that you spend on it, given your circumstances. Now, if you do have that time to save a little bit more money or spend a little bit more money, I would look into something a little bit higher. You're definitely getting a lot more performance out of those flagship bows. But if you want to spend $600 on a bow, this is the bow to spend it on. At least my opinion, at least my thought process on it. You can go anywhere in the country right now and get one of these bows. Well, I'm left-handed, so I had to order it in, but point being, you can go somewhere in a Cabela's or Bass Pro and get a Blackout Epic X2. But thank you guys a ton for watching. I'm really glad that you listened through on me talking about this, and especially talking about that budget mentality and why it's not a taboo thing or something to be shunned. A little takeaway that I would think of it is that the last thing that I want is for someone to have saved up and spent money on a bow that's not the most expensive, but it's all that they can afford. And they go to some shooting tournament, they work up the confidence to do that. They go out on the line and they're standing next to somebody with a $5,000 setup or a $4,000 setup, and they're told that their setup is inferior because it's worth less money. You know, you hate to see it. It's certainly something that's not helping anybody grow the archery community. And at the end of the day, that is one thing that I really care about, is growing the archery community. But again, thank you guys for watching. I hope that you have an absolutely amazing day. Stay tuned for a couple more videos that we have coming out. We're gonna have a more in-depth bow build video here in a little bit with my new bow that I have coming in. And then it's getting close to 3D season, so gonna be doing different shoots, running different courses, whole 9 yards like that. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.